Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. It's a super mini mail call, and well, what's on the bench here is not in a box, so it's a little bit different. This was a local donation here in Portland. This was given to me by viewer Joe. He found this VIC-20 and a couple more things, which I'll get in a second, at the Goodwill bins. If you don't know what that is, here in North America, there's a thrift store chain called Goodwill. You may have seen like Clint LGR's videos on thrifting. That is Goodwill. Now, Goodwill is this nationwide chain in North America, or sorry, in the United States, but they are administered locally. So the ones here in Oregon and I think Southwest Washington state are all administered by the same organization that is pretty much unrelated, as far as I am aware, to like the ones in North Carolina where Clint lives. So that means that they do things a little bit differently in the stores, things like that. Well, here in Oregon, when stuff goes into these stores, it's all things that are donated by people. They drop stuff off, they don't want anymore, whatever, and it goes onto the shelves in the stores, and it sits there for a while, and if no one buys it, then eventually it ends up at this place called the bins, and it's like their clearance center, so to speak. And actually, I've heard that stuff ends up at the bins that never even goes to the normal stores, the consumer stores. So what these bins are is they roll these huge bins out. They're just filled with stuff that people have donated, and it's sort of a free-for-all. You just grab whatever you want. There's like people milling about. You grab what you find. And the cost of what you find is simply by weight. It's not based on what it is. Like if it's something valuable and it's very light, it literally costs you $1 or 50 cents. If it's very heavy and worthless, it's 30 bucks or whatever. You know, I don't know what the rates are. So this VIC-20 was found at the bins, and I'm sure someone would have grabbed it eventually, because what happens is the stuff that's sitting out in these bins, if it doesn't get picked up, then it gets thrown away, or probably recycled, like in the case of electronics, it goes to e-waste or whatever. This VIC-20 here, unknown condition, look, I mean, it's got broken keys and stuff. It would have just gone to the trash if it wasn't picked up by Joe, and then he didn't want the Commodore stuff, so yeah, he gave it to me. So in addition to this VIC-20, he also found a data set, just a run-of-the-mill Commodore data set. And he also found this, which is an IEC disk drive. Look at that, interesting mechanism, right? It looks like it's an Enhancer 2000. Now, it would have had a badge right here that has since fallen off, but the Enhancer 2000, like an IEC, which is, you know, the Commodore bus format, compatible disk drive. It's manufactured by Chinon, which is a disk drive manufacturer, for the Comtel group out of Santa Ana, California. So that's in Los Angeles area there. Yeah, so an interesting disk drive that's obviously got Commodore 64 colors. The data set, there's the power supply for the disk drive. It uses like a DIN connector on the back, and then there was the power supply for the VIC-20 as well. This is the one that uses the Commodore 64 style power supply. Oh, and there was also an IEC cable here for the floppy drive. That's what he was able to find in the bins. I think he said that there was other Commodore stuff there too, and someone had snatched it up before he got to it, like 64 and some other stuff. So anyhow, this is what we have here. So on today's video, let's take a look at this stuff, see if any of it works. So first, we'll start with the VIC-20. Condition-wise, it's not bad. It's missing the power LED, so I assume that's fallen inside. The badge here is sort of broken a little bit. Sorry, the shadow there. The corner's broken. I think these later VIC-20s, this is like a plastic badge. Of course, on the 64, it was metal, but at the end, they got really cheap with making these. This is obviously one of the cost-reduced ones. The keyboard, unfortunately, has missing keys. I really like the feel of this, though. And this, look at the font on these. This seems like this is, it's not a pet keyboard, but I think it's called like the Euro keys or something. The font is different. It's much thinner. Actually, let me grab the ZIF 64, which has the normal keyboard on it here. So notice the way the return and the restore key look, and also the size of the keycaps. They're quite scalloped, and they're not very big. Well, on the VIC-20 here, of course, the font looks different. You can see there the difference in font, but I swear it feels like the tops of the keycaps are just a lot bigger. I don't know what I'm talking about, maybe and kinda. Let's just measure the top there. So it looks like about 8.5 millimeters for that one. And it's about 8 millimeters on that. So, all right, it's not a massive difference. I mean, that's funny that it's not that much of a difference. Let's check the width between the keys here, because that feels a lot more. It's about like 5.5 millimeters on the 64. And on this thing, it's way closer together. It's about 5 millimeters on this one, 5.5 millimeters on this one. I mean, it's funny how we're talking almost no difference, but just visually looking at it, there seems to be a substantial difference. Now, from a feel perspective as well, this feels more solid at a VIC-20. If I put these next to each other, they're both the tall cases, but this plastic on the VIC-20 just feels more solid, and this just feels cheap feeling, this particular ZIF-64. Now, of course, it's not screwed together. That could have something to do with it. This just has a more solid feel to it, and because of that, typing on the keyboard, it just feels more solid as well. I really like that keyboard. Now, I think I actually recently had a VIC-20 on the channel that had this keyboard on it, and I don't remember being nicer feeling, but I might find that computer, it's around here in the basement, steal the keyboard and put it in the ZIF-64, because I end up using this ZIF-64 quite a bit, because it's just the 64 that I have at hand all the time, so I grab it and I use it. This keyboard just feels meh. That one just feels much more pleasurable. Anyway, enough of that. Let's open this up. What is there to report on here? Not much. It's pretty clean. It's not yellowed. I mean, there's a bit of dirt on this side, I think, but I bet you that cleans right off. The condition of this machine, considering it was like one step away from garbage, is not too shabby at all. As I mentioned, this is the cost-reduced VIC-20, which means that it's got the smaller board inside. It's like the same size as the 64 short board. Now, it looks like someone has been in this before. The reason why I say that is because when you put the longer screws into the motherboard, they sort of poke through the bottom of the case here, and it has here, here as well, and a little bit there. So someone has done something in here. Also, there's no crack to these screws when you undo them. It kind of indicates that someone has been in this thing at one point. Maybe some cool things lurk inside. Let's see. Oh, nice and hard. All right, what's it like here on the back here? Not much to report. It says inspector. Can't tell who made the keyboard, but you can see the design is different than the one that's on the ZIF-64, actually most 64 keyboards that I've ever seen. It has this thicker structure that goes all the way around the keyboard, and the wires here actually have this like mounting thing. They're just not taped on with a piece of tape, and there is no ferrite ring on the keyboard, so that's unusual for North America. There seems to be additional holes where the keyboard can be held in place that just aren't used, so that's interesting. And this VIC-20 top does not have any broken clasps, so that's rather fancy. All right, inside the machine, condition is good. Here is the LED, and there's part of the thing that holds it in, but you know what? There's an extra piece that's missing, so I guess that just fell out somewhere. We'll take that off. Not much else to report here other than the cleanliness of what's inside of this machine, so that's nice. All right, for testing, I have the regular 64 power supply here, which is off right now. So we'll plug this in, turn on my brick back here. I have my little pigtail here for the VIC-20. Just breaks out the video cable. Let's get a cable here. And I think we're ready for testing. We got enough. Whoa, look, there we go. That works. Sweet. I grabbed a couple game cartridges so we can hear the sound on this thing. As is usual with VIC-20s, I'm going to put some Deoxit in the cartridge slot because it is so difficult to get carts in and out if you don't do that. Plus a little in the video connector there. Okay, what do we play? Radon Fort Knox, Radar Rat Race, or Avenger? I don't know what Avenger is. Let's give that a try. All right, push F1 to continue. We'll test out the keyboard here that's missing the keys. Now, unfortunately, the key parts that are used on this are different than on the regular 64 keyboards. So there are two broken plungers here. The spacebar is missing, but the plunger is there, but the spring is gone. The springs are probably the same, and one of the F keys. I don't have any of the replacement keys for this style of keyboard, not to mention the plungers that would go on here. Okay, Avengers, I didn't realize that is just Space Invaders. Play Player 1, it said. Let me hook up some audio here. And let's grab a controller here. I have my little NES controller, modified for use on these types of machines. So that's not a bad version of Space Invaders, obviously. Avengers, interesting. You know, they didn't want to get a copyright strike from Atari, right? All right, well, let's just do the old radar rat race because we know that the music is going to be horrible, but let's hear it. There we go. There it is. Push F1 to continue. Okay, this has terrible control, this game. Like, it's just so unresponsive to button pushes. It's absolutely horrible. And the music, I gotta stop it. Anyhow, this is a functional VIC-20, so that is cool. Sorry, this is not gonna be a repair video because there is nothing to repair. This thing just works. I'd say the VIC-20 is definitely a more reliable machine than the 64. It just doesn't have all those custom chips to fail. The only thing that's custom on this is the video chip, right? The VIC chip, whatever the part number is on that. Everything else on this thing is completely off the shelf. So more reliable than the PLA and the SID and things like that that stopped working, the Commodore made. All right, let's take a look at this floppy drive, the Enhancer 2000. Now, I did a little quick reading on the Enhancer 2000 when I looked online, and incidentally, the power supply for it is 5 and 12 volts DC. Anyways, as I was saying, I did some reading about this thing, and I think, you know, it was supposed to be cost competitive to the Commodore disk drive, the 1541. But one of the issues with this drive apparently was that it wasn't fully compatible with the 1541. Like, I think it would work with normal disks, but stuff that used fast loaders and things would not work properly. So I think that was pretty detrimental to the sales of this device, and people just end up getting other drives that were compatible or the Commodore disk drives themselves. All right, let's turn this on. It's got 3 LEDs here. I think that's the activity light. There's a green light that says power, and then there's an error light. So that's kind of cool, it has its own error light. All right, well, just fire it up right away. And we'll use the IEC cable that Joe gave me that he found at the bins with the floppy drive. Now, I do not see any dip switches or anything exposed on this thing, so you can set the drive ID. So I assume this is going to be 8. All right, turn on the disk drive. Turn on the 64. All righty, looks okay. Load. I don't even have a disk in there, but let's see if it tries to read it. All right, it is. Got a little headbang action going on. File not found. I'm gonna go to the Easy Flash cartridge here because, of course, I can load one of the extra ROMs that has like a DOS wedge or something on it. In fact, I think, final cartridge here? All right, I think the first thing we're gonna do is clean the heads. And I have this one here, which has this taped over there so that it you know, won't affect the little pads that are on the disk, on the top of the disk drive that push down. And on here, we're gonna do validate, I guess. Do. All right. And then to open this, you squeeze down and then it releases the disk and pops out. All right, and there's a flashing light here. Let's say read status, and it says read error. I'm gonna use this floppy disk here. It's a DAC CD launcher customization disk. I don't even know what this is. I've already formatted this. Oh, this disk is in rough shape. Well, let's see if it can read this. Well, format to it, because it's definitely formatted for the PC. Initialize, and we're gonna hit do. Read error, okay. This disk may not be good though. How about this disk here? It's a Scotch double-sided double density. Not so rough as that other one. Read error right away. All right, well, part of the problem is the disk operations here. Maybe with Final Cut, they are trying to talk to the 1541 directly in a way that just is not compatible with this drive. I mean, it could be that, right? All right, I dropped into JaffyDOS here. I think I can format a disk with @n. I'm gonna call it Adrian and _8. Okay, I don't know what it was doing in the other program because it sounds like it's formatting the disk without any issue right now. Okay, and the error light is not on and it finished, and if I hit the @ symbol, it just says okay, so that implies that that disk was formatted correctly. Oh, you know what I just realized? I think over in the Final Cut, I was hitting initialize, which is not the same as format. I think that just basically has it read the disk, you know, just to check that it's valid or whatever. So I don't think there was a problem. It would have worked if I hit fast format maybe. All right, so let's take a look. This should give us a directory listing, and there it is. It just says Adrian, awesome. Let's write a little program, print. All right, we hit run. There's my little crap program. Save. Basement, _8. Okay, there we go. It saved it right to the disk drive, no problem. We do a directory command, and there it is, basement. Why does it say 8736 blocks? Wait, what is that? Let's see, load basement. Okay, well, it loaded it, and there's the program. Let's try directory the normal way. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing here. What is 8736 basement? I mean, this could be because I'm using not the stock kernel. Let's go back to the stock kernel here. All right, so load, let's take a directory listing. And what do we got here? Whoops, that's not the right command. And it's the same thing, it's all whacked. This is a test. And let's try saving that. Test, _8. And that's weird, I just saved test and test2, and in the stock kernel, they're one block, so that's working properly, but definitely the directory entry is not right when I was using JaffyDOS, so that could be that slight incompatibility we're talking about. Let's try Dolphin DOS. Okay, so I just have a little program that does nothing here. Let's save, I'll call it Dolphin, and let's save that. And we do list. It's still in memory, so I think we do this should give us a directory listing. And there's Dolphin and one block. So that weird problem with basement, let's load basement. I think it actually loads though. There it is. Save Adrian, _8, list. Okay. And yeah, there it is, Adrian, one block. So it's definitely working fine with Dolphin DOS and not with JaffyDOS. I guess that's the slight incompatibility. Curious about when I power this off and back on again. Let's take a look at the error channel now. Yeah, look, it says Enhancer 2000, so it's running whatever that ROM is, 2.0. Now, what I'm curious about this disk drive, and I didn't read about this, and maybe people have already talked about this, are the electronics in here just a clone of the Commodore 1541? And the only thing that's different is the ROM is different, because of course they didn't want to copy Commodore's ROM, which would end you up in court. If it's the same, can I just swap the ROM with the Commodore ROM and have this thing be functionally the same as a regular 1541? Now here is my SID music disc, which I think is like SID Burner 7, and it has a fast loader on it. So it definitely, oops, I gotta take that disc out of there. It definitely will have trouble if this thing is not compatible with the 1541, at least the architecture in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch over to the stock kernel, And let's load the directory listing on this disk. Okay, it's definitely reading the disk with no issue. So this was written on a 1541. Let's start the program. So of course it won't be any faster than a 1541 at loading. You know, there's no fast loader in this kernel, and obviously this ROM is not, I don't know, like what was the enhancer? Why was it called enhancer? What was enhanced exactly if it wasn't faster? Other than the fact that with an external power supply, the drive's not gonna get hot. Okay, it loaded that, but that's not the fast loader part. We're gonna run this. And, okay, the music is working, which I'll just turn down. We've heard that before. We'll have an intro screen, but when I hit a key, it will continue to load the rest of this demo. And that, of course, uses a fast loader. This is normal. There we go. Here we go. Oh, wow, that worked. Okay, so interesting. So this demo did load. Now, it does definitely have a little fast loader. Let me try and find a different piece of software that definitely uses a fast loader. All right, here is a copy of Ultima 6. Pretty sure this is using a fast loader, and this is a, you know, a hacked copy or whatever, of course. Okay, it very quickly loaded here. We'll hit run. Oh, syntax error with 8,1. Okay, there we go. All right, as it's loading, it's interesting. So that light is on solid, but this is like the error LED, and it's blinking on and off in various ways, kind of like the activity light on the 1541. It almost feels like this LED on here is just simply that the drive motor is spinning, and that is the equivalent of the LED that is on the 1541 for the disk drive access. Hey, look at that. The game loaded. So there it is, Ultima, what was this, Ultima 6, right? Turn the music down. I'm surprised. I mean, I read that this thing wasn't compatible with stuff, and yet this loaded, and clearly that was a fast loader because I didn't wait that long for this to load just now. And I would imagine that this would take quite a long time to load if it weren't for a fast loader. All right, here's another disk here. I don't even know if this one works. I don't even know where I got this. It's Afterburner 2 and Usagi something or other. So let's go to the second side. We'll try Afterburner. Now, while we wait for this to load, let's talk about the coloring a little bit. So it's a pretty good match for the 64. And I mean, I think sitting next to the 64, it looks nice. It's like a good combo. It doesn't have the exact styling that Commodore has, of course. And I don't know what the original badge would have looked like. Probably kind of cool. The fact is, this drive's been on for a little while now, and it's completely cool to the touch. There's no heat coming out of it. How hot is this brick? The brick's not even hot. That's a huge improvement over the 1541. I think it's still, I can hear it seeking, so it's doing something, but clearly this game doesn't have a fast loader on it. Let me get a different one. Wait a second, I just reset my 64 and there's still letters being typed on here. So it's not the joystick, that's not even plugged in. Let's turn off the disk drive. Okay, it's not the floppy drive. What is happening to my ZIF 64? What's happening here? So if I bend the keyboard cable one way, I don't get these spurious characters. I've never seen this happen before. Let me power cycle this thing. No, it's something is wrong with this computer now. What is happening? Oh no. My ZIF 64 has this like weird phantom problem. In all my, 64 using, I've never had this happen before. Okay, let me unplug the keyboard to see if that changes anything. Okay, with the keyboard unplugged, we don't get the phantom key presses anymore. I'm wondering if maybe like my ZIF socket here is flaky, or maybe the chip just needs to be reinserted or something. Okay, let's try again. Okay, that seems fine now. Bad connection, I guess? Weird. All right, how about another tactic? Why don't we try the Action Replay 5 cartridge, because that like supports a fast loader without needing to replace the ROM in the disk drive. So we'll hit R. I'm just gonna say install fast loader, F7. Let's see if this uses the normal wedge commands. There it is, there is Life Force. All righty, let's see if this can work. Definitely needs a compatible drive. Well, that seemed to work. Did it really load the game? Wow, that did load the game. I'm just watching this intro here, kind of cool, from 1987. Well, the game is from 1987. I think the intro said it was from 2003, maybe? All right, let's plug a joystick in. Let's see if this works. There it is, Life Force. No, I don't think this works on NTSC machines. If I had anything like this on my Apple II back in the day, I would have been very impressed. Very, very impressed. Look at the color, like the scrolling. It's not 60 frames per second, but it's pretty snazzy scrolling, though, I gotta say. Do I know what I'm doing here? No, not at all. Okay, well anyhow, this thing is totally, totally working. I have a copy of Portal for the Commodore 64. Now this is a relatively large game. Now it fits on a regular disc here, but let's see how big it is. So it's 130 blocks. Okay, it's not that big. But if you do not have a fast loader, it takes quite a long time to load. And let's see how quickly this loads with Action Replay 5. Wow, that was quick. And there it is, the game is absolutely loaded. Okay, so what, I don't understand, like, where were people saying that this wasn't compatible? Was it version 1 of the ROM that wasn't? And we saw that this had version 2 of the ROM. Did that fix all the incompatibility? Because this thing rocks. I really like this little disk drive. Quite impressed with it. All right, why don't we open this thing up and see what it looks like on the inside. Now, I'm pretty sure that there's probably teardowns of these drives out there. But in case there aren't, well, there will be now. We'll take a look at what we find on the main board. I mean, this thing is running so cool to the touch. I don't even know what year this came out in. Maybe it came out, 87, 88. By then, of course, it would have been really late to the game. Oh, I didn't take the screws out all the way. Oh, the screws are in metal brass inserts. Very fancy. That is sweet. So it's not just into plastic. This drive is quite well constructed. I mean, it's nice and solid. Case is not squeaky. Of course, it's way lighter than the 1541 is. Oh boy. I keep not taking the screws out enough. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I mean, without having the huge transformer in there, like that the 1541 has in it. Oh, look at this. Neat. Okay, so that's just the floppy drive on the top there, right? It is just a normal single-sided drive, as is usual. And there's the mechanism for opening and closing it. It's all metal right here. I mean, this front lip thing you grab onto is plastic, but this little latching mechanism is completely metal there, so that should not break over time. Could just use a little bit of lubricant or whatever. There's the Write Protect sensor right there. You probably noticed that when you put the disc in there, it does sort of self-eject. So you close that, and when you hit this, there it is, it kind of spits the disc out a little bit. So that's cool. That's this little spring mechanism right here. As is this entire thing. This drive here is made by Chinon, as we kind of already knew. And it looks like there's a ribbon cable that connects to this upper part. We can take a look here and see what we see. So Chinon F-051A2. Now look at this connector. Does this kind of remind you of the Apple II disk drive connector, like in the 2C and the later Macintoshes? Could this really be like the same pinout, I wonder? I wonder how this floppy drive comes out. How is this, what's holding this in? Oh yeah, there's more screw holes. There's there, two there, and two there. So you gotta remove those as well if you wanna get the floppy drive out, so we definitely do. We wanna see what's on that board underneath. Lift out this floppy drive. Nice, it's a beltless direct drive construction there, and look, it's spinning very smoothly and nicely. And then we do have this large stepper motor, which you can do the alignment on. It's got 2 screws there, so that's not that unusual. Now, one thing that's very different than the 1541 is obviously the drive here has a bunch of electronics for controlling the stepper motor, for the read-write preamps and stuff like that on the heads. So this communicates probably digitally with this bottom board here. So it's going to be a lot more simple. And that kind of makes me think that, yeah, this might be the same type of connection as an Apple II. Now, am I going to go plug in an Apple II drive into this? Probably not. But by the time this came out, Apple II drives were prolific, and the way that they connected up was very standardized. So maybe Chinon just used an Apple II drive, and like, for instance, if this disk drive ever broke one day and you have one of these drives, you could just swap it out. So looking inside here, I'm super impressed. This thing is really nicely made. We have two 6522s from Rockwell, 1984 date codes there. We have a Ricoh 6502 processor, the Comtel ROM chip there, and there's the static RAM. So I guess that begs the question with this ROM here. Let me pull this out of here. Why don't we take a look at what this looks like on the computer, and I'll swap it out with a ROM, maybe a Jiffy DOS ROM, and let's see if it can control this thing. Okay, so I have the MiniPro here. This is 27128. So we'll just copy this in here. This is the Enhancer 2000 ROM. All portions of this ROM are copyrighted. Fish are frogs, space for rent, cheap. Beware the hidden copyright notice. What? What is this weirdness? That is so hilarious. And then the code starts here. I will definitely save a copy of this ROM, the Enhancer 2000 ROM, just in case for some strange reason it's not available on the, interwebs. I'm sure it is. Okay, there's the ROM chip programmed. First I'll try it without this disk drive connected, just in case it tries to do anything weird to it. Alrighty, turn on the machine. We're gonna load Jiffy DOS, which is Jiffy DOS compatible. Turn on the disk drive. Of course, there's no physical drive connected, but that's okay. Now this thing turned on, the light came on and went off like it was normally working. So let's do that for the error channel. Oh, device not present. Well, that would happen if you don't have the IEC cable connected. So let's turn everything off again. We're gonna check the error channel, and we're gonna expect it to say Jiffy DOS, oops. Jiffy DOS 5.0 1541. Look at that. I loaded the ROM for the 1541-2 because it's one combined ROM that is 16K in size, which is obviously what this thing is using. Let me hook up the disk drive again, and we will try to read something and see if it actually works. Now, if this is like an Apple disk drive, what you have to be careful about is do not get it shifted by one pin either way, because it will damage the disk drive. So I just double checked there to make sure that it is all in there correctly, and it is. All right, moment of truth. Let's turn this on. Will the drive access normally? Yes. Let's pop in this portal disk here. Now I'm not using Action Replay, of course. I'm just running Jiffy DOS. Let's see if the directory lists. No. Wait, yes. What? Wait, what? That's amazing. Let's try loading it. That's it. It actually loaded. So this drive is totally compatible with the 1541-2, which means you can use the ROM from this and that and vice versa if you so desire. So if you have an Enhancer 2000 and you want to speed it up, then go get yourself a Jiffy DOS ROM and you can install it and speed up your thing. And there's probably other mods you could do to this as well for fast loading. Of course, the Action Replay cartridges works really well, and the Epix Fast Load probably would have worked with that stock ROM, but this just worked. That's amazing.
While I'm editing, I'm going to do a little voiceover here. So while it seemed to work, the Jiffy DOS ROM that is, didn't really work properly. I think what's happening is the Jiffy DOS ROM, to speed up operations on the regular disk drive, increases the step rate. And I think it's too fast for this mechanism or potentially the stepper driver, so it doesn't really work. But what I did is I put the original Commodore ROMs back in, not the ones that came with this drive, but the actual Commodore ROMs, and those work perfectly. And I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that this drive really is a clone of Commodore ROMs, and the original version of the ROM that came on this was very much a clone. In fact, they got into legal trouble, so they kind of changed up the ROM for the most part, from the Commodore ROM that is, but I think for the most part it's literally identical. My feeling is any incompatibility that existed with this drive had to do with the fact that it had a 65C02 processor in it and not a regular 6502. So I actually went ahead and I replaced the processor with a MOS 6502 to get rid of that Ricoh processor. And that's really because the 65C02 processor lacks some of the undocumented instructions that are on the original 6502. So there are some slight differences. And apparently some fast loaders take advantage of those undocumented instructions to save on a little bit of code space in RAM, things like that. So I'm 99% sure that with a 6502 and the original Commodore ROM, this drive is 100% compatible with the original 1541. The problem is now is that the Jiffy DOS ROM, which I'd like to run in here, doesn't really work. And while looking online, it seems that at some point there was a version of Jiffy DOS for this drive that probably was custom modified with the correct head step values. But I'm not really sure if that's all that was different. But that version of Jiffy DOS appears to be lost to history. There's really nowhere to download it, and I don't think anyone has a known copy of it. If you happen to know anything about this copy of Jiffy DOS, please let me know. I would really be interested in getting this thing running with Jiffy DOS if possible. But otherwise, it's fine just running the stock ROM as well.
So that is going to be it, I think, for this mail call episode. I'm not going to try the data set because, you know, it's a data set. They're reliable, or the belt needs to be replaced. I mean, whatever. So Joe, thanks very much for rescuing this VIC-20 and this enhancer disk drive and donating them to the basement. Definitely will be seeing this disk drive in the future because I really, really dig this. If anyone has any ideas of what I should do with the label here, how to replace that with something that looks cool, let me know. Maybe I'll just put an Adrian's Digital Basement logo there or something. I don't have a label printer like David Murray does, where you can print those little P-Touch labels on his computer. I don't have such a thing. So anyways, there we go. That's it for this video. If you liked it, thumbs up. I'll put a link in the description to the ROM upload. I'll stick it on archive.org just in case this one is different than the other ones. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks to my patrons. Their names are rolling up the side of the screen. And that is going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.